Yeehaw! I'm Mr. Koble, and today we are going to talk about Texas. All right. So, we're going to learn about the good old state of Texas and how it became its own independent country. Overall, the essential question we are trying to answer today is if Texans were justified in declaring independence from Mexico. You gonna see a lot.
No, wait! Sandy! I can't believe she's gone.
Yeah, what's so great about dumb old Texas?
What did you say?
Texas is dumb?
Don't you dare take the name of Texas in vain!
You mean we can't say anything bad about dumb old Texas?
No, you can't!
Oh, then, can we say people from Texas are dumb?
No, you can't say nothing about Texas!
Oh, so we shouldn't say anything bad about Texas!
I'm warning you, SpongeBob!
Look, Patrick, I'm Texas! Howdy, y'all!
I'm Texas too!
Howdy, y'all!
Get a dog, little Longy! Get a dog!
Howdy, y'all!
Get a dog, little Longy! Get a dog!
Y'all best cut it out!
The stars at night are dull and dim whenever they have to be over dumb old stupid Texas! Hey, Patrick, what am I now?
Stupid?
No, I'm Texas!
What's the difference?
Y'all best apologize, or I'm gonna be on you like ugly on an ink!
You'll have to catch us first! We did it! We got her!
Rusty Crab, here we come! Can we say that plants from Texas are dumb? Can we say that shoes from Texas are dumb?
Okay, Patrick, that's enough.
Why? Do you think that old slowpoke Texas is gonna...
Run faster, Patrick!
Alrighty then. Our little bit of SpongeBob on Texas is completed. If you open up the notes that I have provided for you, you will see some questions at the top. And that is for if these statements are true or if they are false. The first one is that at one time Texas was its own country. Go ahead and circle if y'all think that's true, y'all think that's false. Second one, 1830, Mexico banned immigration from the United States. Mexico did not want Americans coming into Texas and their land. True or false? Number three, Mexico demanded Americans learn Spanish. If you think that's true, go ahead and circle it. And number four, Mexico abolished slavery before the United States. Do you think that is true or false? Moving on, all of them are true. So back then in time, if we rewind to 1810, this is what it looks like. We have Mississippi and Alabama, and those are not states yet. America really wants New Orleans, and then they get all the Louisiana territory from France in 1803. So, why do we care about this if we're going to talk about the greatest state of all time, Texas? First, we need to look at what Texas is like under Spain. So Spain colonized Mexico and all of Texas and all the other environment of Mexico a long time ago. So Texas was under control of Spain for about 150 years almost, about 120 years. It's home to various Native American tribes, lots of presidios and missions and settlements that they have control over. And it kind of looks similar to San Diego, where we are from today, because the Spanish arches and architecture looks very similar. So moving on, you have America starting to expand westward. You have the Oregon Trail all the way from Independence, Missouri, goes all the way over to Oregon, and that is Lewis and Clark, or Clark and Lewis, if you know the song. And you have the Mormons going from Illinois all the way over through Nebraska and into Salt Lake City, Utah. So this is actually at this time Spanish territory, or I believe it's Mexican territory in 1821. But this area, the one we're going to know as Texas, this is what we're going to be looking at today. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, moving on. Oh, that's still there.
In 1830, Mexico.
Yeah, 1930. 1830. Man, a lot of things happened. All right, we're going to move on.
Mexico banned immigration from the United States. Why? Well, one reason, slavery. But for the whole picture, we have to look to the history of Texas. Before Texas was a U.S. state and its own nation, it was part of Mexico's northern state of Coahuila y Tejas. But the region was sparsely populated and vulnerable to Native American tribes seeking to reclaim the land. So in the early 1820s, Mexico opened its northern territory to some American immigrants with the idea that the Americans would protect the region from falling under Native American control. To entice American settlers, the government offered cheap land grants. In 1823, Stephen F. Austin became the first to receive a grant and the right to settle 300 families. Others soon followed. In exchange, the settlers agreed to speak Spanish, convert to Catholicism, become Mexican citizens, and abstain from keeping slaves. But the Americans weren't so good at holding up their end of the bargain. With little oversight from the Mexican government, most remained Protestant, spoke English, and didn't give a hoot about Mexican law. With the cotton industry booming, cheap farmland in Tejas attracted droves of cotton farmers, and cotton farms meant slaves. By 1829, Mexico realized it had a real problem. The American population in Tejas had swelled to nearly 20,000, making it practically impossible for the government to enforce the law. Mexico rightly feared it would lose Tejas to the Americans. So on April 6, 1830, in a bid to maintain control and keep slavery out of its country, Mexico passed a law intended to curb the flood of immigration from the United States to Tejas. It didn't work. The Americans kept coming, and the law further strained Mexico's delicate relationship with the settlers. Then, to make matters worse, in 1835, Mexican President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna repealed the 1824 Mexican Constitution. He moved to centralize Mexican politics, stripping Tejas and the other Mexican states of their right to self-govern. And all hell broke loose. The settlers saw this attack on their rights as the final straw. Their only option, rebellion. But Santa Anna was prepared to put any dissent down, and violently. In early 1836, he marched his troops north. Remember the Alamo? On February 23, 1836, Santa Anna launched a 13-day siege on the settlers' Catholic mission turned fortress. When he finally penetrated the walls, he slaughtered nearly every person inside, ending the battle, but not the war. The settlers called in reinforcements from the states, promising land and free passage. 1 month later, General Sam Houston launched a surprise attack at San Jacinto, capturing Santa Anna and forcing him to sign away Mexican ownership of Texas. The newly independent Texans were psyched. As an independent entity, they would be free to join the United States, where slavery was legal. But oh, the irony. Slavery, which had greatly influenced their bid for independence, now practically extinguished any chances they had for statehood. Because back in the U.S., Congress was grappling with the spread of slavery as their nation expanded westward. Annexation of Texas would bring in another slave state. As Congress debated how to maintain the balance, Texas remained in a state of limbo. For nearly 10 years, Texas struggled as an independent nation, suffering from economic instability and border disputes with Mexico. Finally, in 1845, Texas was admitted to the Union, but it was short-lived. 15 years later, Texas would secede from the U.S. as the country headed towards a civil war over the issue of slavery.
Well, yeah. So, as a recap, I know there was a lot of information in that about 4-minute video that I want to clear up for you. So, in 1821, you have Mexico becoming independent from Spain. They have their own revolution inspired by the Americans, and they succeed. And one of the things they do, I believe, we will get to this a little bit later as it becomes more pertinent to the conversation. No, it's not on here yet. So you have Mexico being allowed immigration of Americans into Texas. Mexico wants Americans to be going into Texas because that's a lot of land and they need people to cultivate that land. They want immigrants from America coming in, but they put those stipulations or restrictions up against these Americans. They said that they must become Catholic, and they said they cannot bring their slaves. Those are the two things that Americans say, oh, yes, we will totally do that, and then completely ignore it, and they do whatever they want because it's Texas. Moving on, so they basically said all Americans from that came into Texas, which is under Mexican control, must follow the Mexican Constitution, which they do not do. Going on at this time, I know the graph's a little bit cut off by the zoom controls, but you see that the blue line is Americans and the green line is Mexicans. And you can definitely see that in 1830, you have a very, very large increase in Americans coming into Texas. And this creates a very, very big problem because once the Americans realize that they outnumber Mexicans 3-1, they start to ignore the Mexican Constitution and they start doing whatever they want. So the population in Texas becomes very predominantly American very quickly. So as we move forward, 1829, Mexico abolishes slavery. They beat the Americans there. A lot of it comes from Catholic principles. Additionally, a lot of European countries stopped lacking the idea of slavery as well around the early 1800s, including Britain, which we are going to get to when we get to the Civil War. But Mexico abolishes slavery in 1829. And then in 1830, they say enough, we're going to ban Americans from immigrating to Texas. There's too many of them coming in. And most importantly, they're bringing their slaves. And Mexico did not like that. So that is the number one thing. You have a lot of slaves coming into Texas. Fun little fact, during this time, when the Underground Railroad was going on in the South to help runaway slaves get from the South to the North, another little element of the, it's a little big. I'm still doing this, by the way. Another little element of the Underground Railroad was some of them were helping the runaway slaves run away to Mexico instead of up to the north because it might have been quicker. So, and some of them today led to Afro-Mexicans or Afro-Latinos in Mexico today. So kind of interesting little tidbit. In 1833, you have General Santa Anna taking over Mexico, and he throws out the Mexico Constitution and he abolished Mexican Congress. So in Mexican history, you're going to have a lot of turmoil during this time and a lot of revolutionary leaders taking over. I believe after General Santa Anna basically makes a coup and takes control of the country of Mexico. I believe Emilio Zapata is next, and after that, you have some more turmoil, and then Benito Juarez, who I think when I learned about him, my teacher said he's like the Mexican Abe Lincoln. Takes over after that. So moving forward, you have General Sam Houston, and then you have General Texas, Houston, Texas, Austin, Texas. These are all named after men during this time. And then you have General Santa Anna of Mexico. Moving forward into the 1830s, you have on March 2nd, Texas declares independence. They say, we do not want to be part of Mexico. We want to be part of America. Problem is, America's not ready for that. America doesn't want them yet because there's not enough free states to go around. On March 6th, Santa Anna and his troops decide that we are going to attack them for trying to rebel, similarly to the American Revolution. And on March 6th, you have the Alamo, where they kill about 200 rebels, 200 Texans. They do not take kindly to this. At this point, on March 2nd, the Texans make a Declaration of Independence. Where we've seen that before. And they say, here are the reasons that we are leaving Mexico. We are becoming our own country. Fun fact, Six Flags Amusement Park, the kind that won't let me wear this nice hat and this bandana, are actually for the 6 different flags that have been over Texas, the 6 different countries that's been part of it. So you have Spain, you got Mexico, you got France, you got the United States, you have Texas, of course, because it's its own country, and then you have the Confederate States of America. Those are the 6 different countries that Texas has been part of. So Six Flags Amusement Park, I love it. I love riding the Viper and the Goliath, but it's for the 6 different flags of Texas. Fun little fact for you. Moving on, that's the Declaration of Independence to separate the This is the Battle of the Alamo.
March 1836, the Battle of the Alamo in Texas. The United States' runaway expansion has brought it into conflict with the Mexican Empire. Mexico's vast territories stretch from Oregon to Guatemala. But Texas is disputed territory. The Mexican government has invited American settlers in, but they quickly flood the territory in overwhelming numbers.
Americans by the thousands were coming into Texas, and they were not abiding to the agreements to come in as settlers. And once they outnumber by 1835 Mexicans 10-1 in that area, of course, the Americans are thinking about independence.
At the Alamo, the pioneers make their stand for independence. In an old Spanish mission, 200 American settlers are under attack. Attempting to retain control of Texas, a Mexican army storms the makeshift fort. The siege ends in a massacre. 186 defenders dead. At the Alamo, brave men like Davy Crockett become heroes and martyrs. Women and children are spared and sent back home to spread the message, don't come. It's a turning point.
All right. So they lose this. Sorry. I forgot who I was for a second. They lose this battle at the Alamo, and it becomes a big rally cry and a big source of inspiration to fight and to fight over Texas and later on the Mexican-American War. So the aftermath.
¿Cuál es la demora?
Como prisioneros de guerra podríamos intercambiarlos por...
They are not
alguna-
soldiers. These men are pirates.
The Alamo's falling! San Diego's taking the Alamo! The Alamo's lost! San Diego's taking the Alamo! We lost the Alamo! We lost the Alamo! San Diego's taking the Alamo!
So word gets out about the Alamo, and it makes entire Texas come together and go to fight and take their land back. So after this, about a month later, Texans defeat Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto and win their independence, and Texas becomes its own independent country. From 1836 and 1845, Texas is not a state of the United States of America. It is its own country, as it should be. No, I'm kidding. Texas became its own country. They call themselves the Republic of Texas. They got a nice little flag. It's just a lone star. Later on, it joins the United States in 1845. So, hallelujah. There's the Texan flag. So, if you're interested in the battle history, personally, I'm not. If you would like to learn more about it, that would be, if you'd like to, that would be wonderful. I will go over these border boundaries, though. So you can see how this red line goes around Louisiana, goes around Arkansas, and around Oklahoma. When Texas is first, here's the reason the whole part of the war broke out, or it will break out when we get to Mexican-American War, is Mexico believes that it has all of this land in the green. When the dust settles and everything kind of goes away, the yellow, which is this side, this is the part that is quote unquote the country of Texas after the war is over with. Mexico believes that it continues to have this part, the green. But the Texans, the people living in the yellow part, believe that they can expand all the way to the green part, which is what is today the Texas border. This causes a lot of problems because Mexico believes that they own the green and Texas believes that they own the green. So later on, we're going to have some conflicts. As far as the actual battles, they're all over here. You can see that Mexico wins at the start and they start attacking. And then the Americans start fighting all along there, and they end at the Battle of San Jacinto, which is where all the ships can come in, because there's this water entry right here. So battle ends over there. You have your main cities. You got Austin, which is named after what's that dude's name? One of the people. His last name's Austin. You got San Antonio, and then you got San Jacinto, which are cities in Texas today. There you have it. There's your basic informative lecture about Texas. Moving on. If you would like to see this video, it is a sing-along version of the Texas Revolution, sung along with that Shawn Mendes Stitch song that some of y'all love so much. It is pretty wonderful. It is a little bit too cringy, even for me, and y'all know that's saying something. So we're going to move on. The question going forward is all about the expansion. So, were Texans justified in declaring their independence from Mexico? That is the big question. What I'm going to put is I'm going to put up some Google Docs that I want you to read. I want a Google PDF I want you to read, and I'll have instructions more laid out for you over there about how you're going to do this starting next week. So hopefully you enjoyed this. And remember, Texas.